All right, let's talk about AI and jobs. Is generative AI coming for us? I mean, it feels like every single day there's a new headline, right? One day it's predicting a total apocalypse, the next it's telling us not to worry. The whole conversation is just noisy, confusing, and honestly a little stressful. So today, we're gonna cut through all that noise and look at what the data actually says.
Okay, so let's just dive right in with the one question that is on literally everyone's mind, especially if you're just starting your career. Is this new wave of AI a job killer?
And this is exactly why it's so confusing. On one hand, you've got headlines screaming about a white-collar bloodbath. But on the other hand, you see reports saying, no, AI jobs apocalypse. I mean, these are completely opposite messages. So who's right? Well, to find out, we're gonna need some much better data.
And that brings us to this brand new paper from Stanford University. You know, the authors call their work a search for the canaries in the coal mine, basically looking for the first real data-driven clues about what AI is actually doing to the job market.
Now, just in case you don't know the phrase, a canary in the coal mine is an early warning sign. It's an old saying. Miners used to literally carry canaries into the mines because the birds were way more sensitive to toxic gases. If the canary got sick, the miners knew they had to get out, fast. So the question this study is asking is, are certain jobs the canaries for the rest of our economy?
So how did they go looking for these canaries? This is the crucial part. They didn't use job postings or surveys, which, let's be honest, can be super misleading. Instead, they got their hands on real-time payroll data from ADP, the largest processor in the entire United States. We're talking millions of actual paychecks in near real time. This gives them an incredibly accurate picture of what's happening on the ground.
And here it is, the first clue they found. The data showed something pretty striking for young software developers, specifically those between 22 and 25. Right around the end of 2022, just as tools like ChatGPT were going mainstream, their employment numbers started to drop, and drop sharply. And what's wild is that this was happening even as employment for older or more experienced developers in the same field stayed stable or even kept growing.
So, you might be thinking, was this just some fluke in the tech world? Nope. Turns out the researchers found the exact same pattern in another field that's highly exposed to AI, customer service. Again, the data shows that employment for the youngest workers started heading south, while it held steady for everyone else. This isn't a coincidence, it's a trend.
So, okay, we've got our first clues, and the data seems to be pointing toward a very, very specific group. So let's zoom out a little and see what the broader trend really is.
And this visual illustrates the core finding perfectly. The researchers compared high-exposure jobs like software development with low-exposure jobs like, say, health aides. And the results? The complete opposite. In those low-exposure fields, employment for young workers was actually growing faster than for older workers. So the effect is clearly and very specifically tied to a job's exposure to AI.
So then the researchers did what researchers do. They crunched all the numbers to isolate the effect of AI. After controlling for all the other noise, things like which companies are hiring or the state of the broader economy, they found something really significant. In the jobs most exposed to AI, hiring for young workers was 13% lower than it would have been otherwise. 13%! This wasn't some random blip, it's a real, measured impact.
This chart really just sums it all up. It compares employment growth in those high-exposure jobs. Just look at the two bars. On the right, you see older workers, whose employment still grew by over 9%. Nice. But then, on the left, you see young workers. Their employment actually fell by 6%. Think about that. In a growing economy, this one group is moving in the completely wrong direction.
Okay, so we know it's young people in exposed jobs. But the next big question is, why? Is all AI just bad for entry-level jobs? Well, the study suggests the answer is no. It really depends on how that AI is being used.
And it all comes down to this key difference: automation versus augmentation. See, automation is when AI replaces a human task entirely. A good example is a chatbot that handles a whole customer service query from start to finish. Augmentation, on the other hand, is when AI assists a human, making them better or faster at their job. Think of a tool that helps a developer write code more efficiently.
So which one is driving the job numbers down? The study found a super clear link. The decline in employment for young people was concentrated in those jobs where AI is used for automation, to replace human tasks. But in jobs where AI is used more to augment or assist workers, the employment effects were minimal or sometimes even non-existent.
All right, so the logical next question is about money.
If hiring for these jobs is going down, surely wages must be falling too, right? That makes sense.
Well, this is where the data shows something really fascinating. The adjustment in the market is happening almost entirely through employment, meaning fewer new hires, and not through compensation. Let's go back and look at the data for software developers again. Remember how employment for the youngest group fell off a cliff? Well, their pay didn't. In fact, the data shows pay for all age groups of developers has stayed stable or even continued to grow. Economists have a term for this: sticky wages. It means that instead of cutting pay across the board, companies are simply hiring fewer entry-level people. All the pressure is right there, at the front door of the job market.
So, after looking at all this evidence, what's the verdict? What does it all mean? Well, the study boils everything down to 6 key facts that are emerging from the data right now.
Okay, let's do a quick recap. First, employment is down for young workers in AI-exposed jobs. Fact. Second, this is happening even as the overall economy continues to grow. Third, these declines are specifically linked to AI that automates, not augments. Fourth, the effect is big, a significant 13% relative decline. Fifth, the hit is to hiring, not to wages. And finally, number 6, these trends are robust. They hold up even when you account for other possible explanations.
And the authors themselves, they land the conclusion with this really clear, carefully worded statement. They say, our results are consistent with the hypothesis that generative AI has begun to significantly affect entry-level employment. See, it's not some headline-grabbing wild prediction. It's a data-driven conclusion about what is happening right now.
Which brings us right back to our central metaphor. The data strongly suggests that young entry-level workers in certain jobs are the canaries in the coal mine. They are the first group to be measurably affected by this new wave of AI. And that leaves us with one final and pretty crucial question to think about. What exactly is this an early warning for?